because it's totally inaccurate now. Okay, I'm just gonna skip all of that. I don't particularly need that. Okay, have your games open. Um, I have. We go live in 5 minutes. You are currently uh muted. I mean, not muted, but like you don't have sound for right this second. So you but there will be sounds short. I mean, they'll when we switch to the other view, you'll have sound. There'll be sound. In 4 minutes, I'm gonna go grab a water. Apparently, I don't have it. So yeah, we're gonna start off. I'm back. I realize that you can't see me because there's my video's occupied, but we're gonna start off with the basics of who you are and what you do, and then work from there. Okay. I need a for once in my. Oh, actually, I always say this. I'm always like, I need a third monitor. Only I have a third monitor. My computer hates it, but it exists. It's a thing that I have access to. Okay. Oh, yeah, my computer hates it. Just like too many graphics. Too much graphics. Uh, this will probably go for like an hour 45 minutes just to give you a time frame, but we shall see. But I won't take up all of your, I think, morning. Yep. And if you need to head out because it's early and you have other things that you plan to do for today, feel free to let me know and we will wrap it up. Yes. Huh? Oh. It'll be fine. Everything will be fine. I need to steal this tweet and post it some places. Copy link to this tweet. I always forget that I go live and then don't tell anyone. Except for Twitter, and Twitter's just like, whatever. I'm in all these Discord groups, I should use them. Right? Like, what's the point of being in Discord groups to have, Okay, we have 8 seconds. Oh, yours was 18? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now I know that there's a slight delay. Good to know. Which is really annoying. Actually, come on, computer. Come on. Because Twitch, it's the speed in which things get sent over the internet. Yay, and we're live. Okay. Or rather, chat will be up to speed. Like, chat will respond at the right time. Um, but, like, the video will be behind, which is really annoying from time to time. Um, okay, so hi, welcome to Behind the Game, where we talk about, game design and how games get made by people and why they make them and all that jazz and all the fun nitty gritty behind, not nitty gritty, but behind the scenes things people don't really think about of game design. And so this is the point where you get to introduce yourself.
Hey, so my name's Luciella Scarlett. I've been designing games, my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
Yes.
I've been designing games for 2 years now. I got started off with making content for Dungeons and Dragons, and went from there to designing original games on itch as well.
Cool. So it's always fun when people like, I started off here, but now I make my own stuff because why not? So I guess the start question will be, what made you go from making Dungeons and Dragons games, and Dungeons and Dragons content to making your own original content?
Sure. So I guess I'm just trying to think of exactly when it was. So the first game that I played that was, well, the first tabletop role-playing game that I played that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons was actually Honey Heist. It was a fantastic game. For anyone who hasn't played it, it's one page compared to the 1,000 or so pages that make up Dungeons and Dragons. And it fits quite a lot on that one page. It's an amazingly simple game where your two stats are, I think, bear and criminal.
Yes. Or bear and hat?
No, but you also have a hash.
Okay. It's been a while since I played Honey Heist.
Yeah, yes. No, but it's a fantastic game, and I loved how simple it was. But in a way, it's still a dice rolling game, which to a certain extent it wasn't. I mean, it is very different from Dungeons and Dragons, but it wasn't super different from it. Another indie game that I played, I think last year, was Oracle, which is an indie game by a Melbourne-based developer, which uses cards to. It's a story game that uses cards as a game mechanic, and that just blew my mind in terms of the type of story that you could just create at the table. With just some basic prompts. And that, like, every time I find a new indie game, it just amazes me with how smart it is. So that was, for me, I just got really excited about everyone else's games, and that's why I decided I wanted to make them too.
No, that's a good, I feel like that's, as I talk to more people, that's gonna be a lot of people. It's like, I saw someone else did something cool, and I'm like, I want to do that too.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So let's talk. So you mentioned that it was an indie story game, not that the Oracle was an indie story game. So tell us about, and by us I mean me, pretend it's just me. For the sake of nerds, pretend it's just me. About how what's the word? About the games that you've made. Could you sent me 2 of them? Which I have them open. Pride and Princess and Cages of Sand. Tell us about them.
Sure. So 2 very different games, both of which use cards as a mechanic. Because I mean, I still use dice sometimes. Actually, Pride and Princess also uses dice, so it's a combination of cards and dice. Cage of Sand is a tarot-based storytelling game. Where the story is you are stuck in a time loop in which everyone is dying repeatedly. So it is a bit of a dismal game, but that's sort of the sort of game that I like playing when I'm feeling bad, funnily enough, is dismal games. So it's a horror game. and it can be played either solo or grab some friends and you can create a story together with them. So on totally sort of the opposite side of that spectrum is another game, Pride and Princes, which I also sent you, where the story is you're going on an adventure and you're also surrounded by princes.
I mean, that sounds amazing. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like a breath of fresh air compared to, and everyone's dying repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean they're both sort of anime inspired, but very different types of anime. And I packed so many silly tropes into Pride and Princes.
Tropes are the best.
Yeah. It was actually inspired by, or developed for a game jam, which was the Bot Collab Jam.
Okay.
It's where RPG Bot on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Just these really silly short tweets that summarize a game design idea. So that's where this came from, was a combination of that silly design prompt with just every anime trope I could think of.
literally the first game that I made, the first game that I made was literally for Tropes Jam, where it's just like, take a bunch of tropes, put them in a game, make a game. And it's just like, yes, I personally try not to put trope, like I try to like tone it down, but like every time it's like, but why? But what?
Tropes are fun though.
They're so good, and like they're like comfy clothes that you can just put on, and it's just like, yeah. I'm gonna do that because someone's already proven that everyone loves this thing. Why do I have to like reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, why change perfection?
Exactly, and they are like there's not a bad trope. They're just poorly executed tropes. Let's see. I need to turn that off. Before I realized that one of my bot was gonna keep telling me to drink water, and it was just like, no. As you can see chat, you can see that the bot was just like, drink water, it's 4:30, and it's like, leave me alone.
That's a good reminder though.
Yes. So speaking of tropes, just a tangent for a second, because obviously tropes are great. What's your favorite trope in terms of like game design and like game creation?
Oh, geez, you're making me choose my favorite child.
You don't have to pick one. You can pick as many as you feel like talking about.
Yeah, well, I also contributed to Trope Jam, so
okay.
a while back. So I made a game that was called Defeat the Demon Lord, but with table tennis.
Yes, okay, I saw that. I know that. I know that game.
Yeah, so it was based on the trope of duels decide everything. So and the article gave the example of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is like,
yeah,
any dispute that you have, it's a card game. That's how you resolve it. So in this case, it's table tennis. And I just love that combination of like in Yu-Gi-Oh, where you have this really serious plot about this person trying to destroy the world, and you have a card game.
Yeah, like, I kidnapped your brother. I'm holding him hostage. We're gonna fight you via card game. Yeah,
it's fantastic. So I love that trope.
that is okay. So speaking of duels and duels decide everything, there is a game called Firebrand. I don't know if you know it. It's a moderately sized indie game because it has what's the word for it? It has a not a tabletop version of it, a miniatures version of it involved in it, but in that game there are duels. Like everything in that game, the game consists of like 6 different kinds of duels, and it's like duels of words, duels of wit, duels of like swords, neck duels, like you name it, there's a duel for it. And you can use different mechanics like card games, and like I've lost the thread of my thought. It's fine. Anyway, Firebrand is great. Everyone should check it. If you like duels, you'll like that one, because that one has like the entire game is how many different ways can we like throw you into a duel, and how many different ways can we throw you into a fight and call it a duel.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to check it out.
But you have to find a specific version of Firebrand. I'll send it to you later. After this.
Definitely.
um, because Firebrand itself, like the brand of Firebrand, is a Lego-based mech tabletop RPG. But or not a table, war game. It's a Lego-based war game.
Sure.
And anyway, so you told us about Pride and Prince and Cage of Sand. Now you get to pick your favorite child.
Oh dear. I think right now it's Cage of Sand, which yeah, I just really love this sort of story you can create with it and how easy it is to create that story. And I think the writing in it as well is probably the best writing I've done so far. But that said, I'm putting out games all the time, so I'm sure my favorite child will be replaced soon enough. Sorry,
A
children.
new one will be born, and it'll be mine. And now the youngest will always be the favorite child. That's how that works.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I've definitely improved a lot over the past 2 years, and I'm just looking forward to how much I can continue to improve.
So since you've been doing this for 2 years, obviously Cage of Sand and Pride and Princess isn't the only two games, because you also have the tabletop defeating demons with tabletop tennis. Is that right?
Defeat the Demon Lord, but with table tennis.
But with table tennis. Okay. So that's 3 games. So what was your? Did you say what your first game was? Was I not paying attention?
What was my first game? So I mean,
was,
I got started through Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
I think the first original game that I made. Just having a think. I think it might have been Damn Skippy, which was. This was a game made for, I forget the name of the jam, but it was, that's it, Felonious Fauna, which is pretty much Make a Honey Heist ripoff.
Oh, okay. Make a Honey Heist inspired game.
Well, no, just games about animals doing crime was the prompt.
Oh,
so
okay.
this was a game about necromancer kangaroos. Which I don't know if that's technically a crime, but it probably should be.
I mean, I'm trying to think if necromancy is actually a crime or just a thing that is heavily frowned upon. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, digging up corpses is probably a crime.
Depends on where you are, based on Tumblr. Based on what I've learned from Tumblr, that depends on where you live.
I'm gonna have to look that one up and figure out where it's legal. But no, I didn't say that. But I think that might have been the first non-D&D thing that I wrote. And yeah, I mean, game jams is such a fantastic way to get started. I think you mentioned that your first game that you made was actually for a jam as well. And
yes. Like that, it was literally, for me, it was like I saw that there was a game jam running, and I was like, cool, I'm not gonna do that. And then I was like, I guess I'm doing that. I guess I'm like gonna do that for real. And then I like spent like 40 something hours making a game and did nothing for like 2 weeks straight but work on this game. It was like a fit of madness. Inspiration struck and I couldn't let it go. So let's talk, speaking of inspiration striking and fits of madness, tell us about your design process. Like, how do you go from idea to finished product?
Sure. I mean, it depends on the game. I mean, I'm often similar. It's just this sort of storm of have an idea and create a prototype as quickly as possible. Because I find that's the easiest way to actually get it done and not just have an idea, which I'll get to at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, I try to like go from that initial idea to a first draft as quickly as possible. From there, playtesting, if possible, I think it's fantastic. It's not always possible. Even if you can get another person's eye across it is very helpful for me. From there, even if I can playtest it myself, which I've done for some of my solo games, or really for all of my solo games, obviously doing the layout, try and make it look pretty. So I spend a lot of time nowadays selecting fonts, which I didn't when I started out, but they make such a huge difference, I've found.
Font, page color, page size. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all the little things that add up. and sometimes I do my own art, or I find stock art or public domain art on the internet. So just put some work into prettying it up, and then pretty much throw it on itch. And I actually quite often go up and update games after I put them on there.
That was gonna be my follow-up question.
Yeah. Do you want to ask your follow-up question?
My follow-up question was, do you do version updates when you make changes to games as you get feedback? Because I'm just like, I do, and I don't know if anyone else, I know.
Absolutely. Well, it's a combination of it's getting feedback, and it's also just looking back on my old stuff and thinking, oh wow, look at that, that's terrible.
It was great. Like when it came out of my brain, it was great. But now that it's been out, now that it's festered in the world for a while, it's a little shaky there. So a little shaky.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the, I guess, learn and grow thing. Is you look at your old stuff and like, what was I thinking? But I mean, and if I get feedback, definitely, that's I go back in and provide updates on it. And of course, if you buy a game on itch, you always get access to the latest versions. So and I try, if it's a big change, I'll put a devlog out as well. If it's not, I'll just quietly put it out there and hope no one notices all the mistakes I fixed.
Yeah, I also make visual novels, so whenever I make a change, I'm just like, I guess I have to do a devlog to tell everyone all the things that I've updated. Like, oh look, now it has art. It is no longer just a black piece of paper with text on it. It now has art. It now looks pretty. So speaking of design, because design is one of the things that I'm like, I can do it. I exist in Google Docs. I do all my work in Google Docs. What do you work in, like, in terms of both writing the games and then like making it pretty?
Sure. So I do a bit of my own art, and for the most part, I'm a traditional artist.
Okay.
So it's pretty slow process of paper and inks, and scanning it in and feeling despair at all the colors turning nasty when they turn digital. For shorter games in particular on itch, I often, I mean, despite the fact that I can do my own art, I find it's easier some of the times to just find things online. And there's a lot out there. So there's both the stock art that you might find on DriveThruRPG. There's stock photos, like Pexels is a site that I use a lot. There's public domain art as well. Old book illustrations is a good source of that. It's public domain is basically just everything that's at least, is it 90 years old?
Something like that. It's as long as Disney has been a thing, that many years old.
Yeah, pretty much. And so long as they haven't done a Disney and made a live action remake of it. So.
Yeah, and you can is this before or after Betty White's time?
Yeah. So
slice bread.
But there's a lot of stuff out there, and I mean, when I was getting started, it was like art was something I struggled with, which is why I ended up doing it myself. But nowadays, I found it's actually a lot easier to find things. So it's good. I can be lazy.
Oh, that is true. I always somehow I get sucked into like getting someone else to do art for me, and it's just like, why am I doing that? I should just do it but I'm like, I can't do it myself. Oh, hello, thank you for the follow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, commissioning is also great if you've got the budget. But the other thing that I do like to really stress is you don't need the budget. If you can't afford to hire an artist, there is stuff out there.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about not having a massive budget for your production. So don't be afraid of stock stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of budget, and you mentioned itch, are you also on are any of your games also on DriveThru? And which do you like best?
Yeah. So I mean, both is the simple answer. I think itch is my preferred platform because you make more money off it.
Oh, cool.
Sort of margin perspective, you get 90% on itch versus 65% on DriveThruRPG.
Oh,
so
I'm not on DriveThru, so I didn't know.
Yeah, the trade-off of that is that DriveThruRPG gets significantly more views.
Okay.
Thing. Yeah. So, but I mean, if it's not exclusive, you might as well put it on both. Because what I find is I put stuff on both platforms. I market using my itch links, but if I duplicate things on DriveThruRPG, which I'm normally only doing for games which are more or less stable, I'm not doing a whole heap of updates.
Yeah.
I'll put those on DriveThruRPG as well, and then you get passive traffic, which is just people coming across the site, finding your stuff and buying it. So yes, you make less margin, but that's pretty much
you make it up by having to do less marketing, and marketing is exhausting. It is my least favorite thing about game design.
I completely agree. Yeah, no, I hate it.
I'm great at talking about my games. I'm bad at pitching. I'm good at pitching them to people. I'm bad at doing it repeatedly. Like I can do it once, and then I'll never mention it again. They'll never know that it happened. It's just like there's a game I'm making. Great. Okay, cool. Never talk about that again. We've moved on to the next project.
Yeah.
So on top of the games that you've already made, what are you, I guess, in this time of crisis where we have nothing but time on our hands, what are you working on? If you're working on anything, if you're not, that's totally fine.
I'm working on repaying my debts to the to the raccoon mafia mostly, but
I'm sorry, what?
Animal Crossing. No, but look, I mean, I've personally slowed down a lot, and I think a lot of people have, just in terms of the work that they're producing, which, I mean, that's sort of the state of things right now.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
That is understandable, because like personally I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have all, like I did I don't know if you did this, but I know I personally did the thing when it first started, when everyone was like, oh, stay at home. I was like, I'm gonna be so productive, I'm gonna have all this time on my hand, I'm gonna get up every day at like 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna work for like 6 hours a day, it's gonna be great, I'm gonna put out all this content, and then like that lasted a week, that lasted 5 days.
I am slowly producing things, and I think the other thing is a lot of jams have come out of quarantine. So I'm trying to make something for this relaxation jam, which is I'm making a game about scrying, pretty much.
Oh, cool.
Just, like imagining new worlds by staring at crystals.
Okay.
So that's something that I'm slowly working on. So I won't put a date on when that'll come out, because I think look, everyone's taking it slow, and so am I. And
there's no.
We want to do our best to not feel guilty about our unproductivity. So, yeah.
Listen, I count anything. I count being healthy and alive as being productive right now, because this is an unprecedented situation that I don't like. Does anyone know what to like? Like it's. What do you do? Like, we'll slowly, but like it'll be a while before everyone gets back on track and feels up to doing things. But yeah, no, there are a lot of game jams coming out. I signed up for a Magical Girl jam for next week. I think it is, because I need to make another Magical Girl game. Like, I don't already have 3 of those.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
I have a legitimate problem. You say Magical Girls to me, and I go, yes. You don't have to say anything more or less than Magical Girls to me, and I'm just like, yes. So on that topic, what is a type of, not a trope, but a type of game that you enjoy making and or playing, that like no matter the context of it, you were gonna say yes to?
I mean, there's sort of, for me, there's 2 extremes. One is horror games, which I just absolutely love. So I'm always up to play a horror game, and there's a bunch of horror games which I really want to play, but it's hard to find people to play with. And then the other side of it, which is just really silly games, is something that
like
I enjoy.
Heist.
Yeah, like Honey Heist.
You should make a horror version of Honey Heist.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I think the other type of game I've been getting really into nowadays, and especially I think with all the social distancing, is just games like For the Queen, which are just really easy to pick up and just start, and like no prep. no stress. That game is fantastic.
Yes.
And, yeah. In fact, I think did you make a delivery?
I did unintentionally. So I made what game? I've made I've made so many games that my brain kind of like forgot what games I've made. But yes, and you know what's funny was I started whatever game this is, and I can't think of what it is now that you've put me on the spot and asked me about my own work.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I literally forgot what, but I hadn't played For the Queen when I started working on that game. It was after I played For the Queen, I went, oh, I made a For the Queen game. After I went, oh, like someone had explained to me the concept of For the Queen. Like someone had explained the concept to me at one point. I was like, that sounds cool. That's a great idea. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm never gonna play For the Queen. And then I ended up playing For the Queen. I was like, no, I made a For the Queen game. Yeah, completely didn't mean to do that, but.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, what is a great mind? Like my basic, like it's such an easy to pick up and follow game that someone's basic explanation as to how the game works was enough for me to like take it and run with it. And then like it took me playing For the Queen to go, oh yeah, no, that's a For the Queen game. Yeah. Sorry, I keep drinking water because even though my bot's not yelling at me, I know it's supposed to be yelling at me. So when you were saying how when you work on games, when you start them, you just kind of like go with the flow until you get a working prototype out and into the world. But are there any I guess long-term projects that you're working on that are different from like the short, faster games that you have already produced?
Yeah, so there's one game which I originally made for I think Pride Jam. Well, it was in Pride Month last year, which is a much longer RPG. It's got both the RPG itself and it's got a setting involved in it, which is currently called Coven.
Okay.
So this is a funny way because how I explain it is I spite wrote it after reading Blue Rose, which
Spite is a powerful motivator. Spite is a powerful motivator.
Yeah, so Blue Rose is a romantic fantasy, both an RPG and a setting. But Coven is an aromantic fantasy setting and game. So pretty much what it is, it's a world in which everyone has a familiar. So there's this little glowing animal that follows you around. And there are some people who don't have familiars, and that is seen as very strange.
Okay.
So it takes a lot of inspiration from my experience as an aromantic and asexual person. The idea is from a certain age, your familiar appears. But if you are an afamiliar, that never happens.
Yeah.
So that game it's slowly being developed.
Okay.
So I've got it on there. It's up on itch right now as an early access version.
Okay.
Which means, look, there's a complete version of it right now. It's got both the core rules, it's got a character sheet, a couple of other things. It's got a map, which is a fantastic map.
Did you make it yourself?
No, that's why it's fantastic. I commissioned that one.
Oh, nice.
From he's Kaora on Twitter, so definitely give Kaora a follow. It's such a great map. So that's the best part of my game, really. That's the game which I'm slowly updating on it. It has sort of been put to the side, partly because of quarantine, partly because of a bunch of other stuff. So I do need to go in and make a big update on that one. But that'll eventually go through Kickstarter and hopefully be like a proper printed game.
Yeah. So. Isn't that the dream? Okay, actually, speaking of the dream, what is your not end goal, but like where do you see yourself in 10 years either? That's also a terrible question. Like in terms of game design, like what you're doing, where do you want to go? Like do you
well, I mean, this is an awkward thing for everyone to talk about, I think, but my goal is to make enough money to not have another job.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's
yeah.
yeah. I mean, outside of okay, so to be fair, that was a trick. That wasn't the right question, because that's everyone's goal is to do the thing that they love all the time and not have to do something that they love less than the thing they love the most. Outside of making enough money to have this as your solo job, what do you want?
Sure. I mean, the type of game, well, like, as I said, when I first started out, my first RPG was Dungeons and Dragons, which is this massive 1,000-page game. I mean, obviously, I think hardly anyone reads the full 1,000 pages, but my point is, like, that's a really long RPG. And the more that I've designed, the more I've moved away from that sort of game. And I mean, Coven aside, which I do want to be like, not a massive game, but a longer game, I actually really do enjoy these short games, both the sort of things that come out of game jams, which might only be 1 to 5 pages, but also these like clever card games like For the Queen and Oracle, which I mentioned earlier. So I think I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I want to keep sort of innovating, coming up with
No, it does.
ideas for games that can just sort of be picked up quickly, that's got interesting mechanics, and yeah, that people enjoy.
Yeah, no, that does answer the question, because like I want to do something similar, like outside of making enough money to do this full time. I want to make games that people enjoy playing wherever they are and whatever their skill level. Dungeons and Dragons has a high learning curve. It's fun once you get it, but like there's a not learning curve, barrier of entry, I guess is a better way. It's not something that you can just sit down and play on your own with no prep. It involves other people knowing what's up. Like that's like I want to make games that are not the opposite of that, but like that you can play at a convention. Like
yeah, no, I mean, I agree, and because for me, when I was DMing Dungeons and Dragons in particular, that was so stressful for me. I hate DMing so much. I mean, there's enjoyable things about it as well, but the fact that you need to prepare all this stuff in advance, the fact that the dice rolls can have such a wide sort of range of can happen, to the extent that, I mean, there's this big debate about whether or not you should fudge rolls, but in other games you don't need to even worry about that, because there's like the plot doesn't change that drastically based on a roll of the dice, or if it does, it's easier to actually adjust the plot as you go. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind saying that as much as I still enjoy Dungeons and Dragons and I still play Dungeons and Dragons, the type of games that I create, I want to be totally different.
Yeah, no, I joke that I want to make niche games for niche people. Like, I joke. I think I made this joke on Twitter once that Evil Hat is my rival. They're not really my rival. They have no idea I exist, but they make niche games. I want to make games nicher than them. Like,
yeah, and I follow a lot of queer people as well, and people of color on Twitter who are just producing games which are so targeted based on particular experiences, and it's so fascinating. So yeah, I love those niche games.
Yeah, like I want to make like. You could make a broad game for everyone that anyone can play, like Dungeons. Well, not anyone can play Dungeons and Dragons, but in the ideal universe, Dungeons and Dragons would be not offensive to everyone and anyone could play it. Like in an ideal universe, but it's not. But like you could make a broad covering game like Dungeons and Dragons, or you could make a game for like 5 people, but those 5 people really, really love that game. Like they really, really love that game. It's like people who really, really love Risk. Like I don't understand why you love Risk or what's going on with Risk, but like it's your thing. I want to make games for people who go, this thing is my thing. This is my jam over here, and that is literally all that I care about is this thing.
Yeah, no, I love and I mean, one game that I will mention as well is or a set of games, Romantic, which you can find on Itch. What it is a set of micro games based on aromantic and asexual experiences. And when I read that, it's because it's so targeted in it, and like it's so targeted. I felt Like it was relatable.
Yeah, like
And
they made
that's
this
the kind
thing
of
for
content I
me.
wanted to see. Mm.
They made this thing for me, and it's mine.
Yeah.
It's mine. This is mine. You can't take that from me. Not I have to share this with other people. I mean, I can, but I don't have to. So speaking of other games not games that you've made, and that not games that are games that are Dungeons and Dragons, for example, or romantic, what are your other favorite games that you enjoy playing? Like like if you had to introduce someone to tabletop RPGs, and you had to pick a game that an indie game for them to play, what game would you pick?
I'm going to have to mention For the Queen again. I know I've already banged on about that one, but like it's such a fantastic game just to get started with this idea of imagining a world and also getting comfortable with role playing, getting comfortable with putting yourself forward. So that is absolutely the game that I would use to introduce someone to tabletop role playing. I mean, Honey Heist as well, because both because it's a fantastically simple game, and also because there are streams and there are a whole bunch of gameplay examples of it, which is a bit of a struggle with indie games sometimes. Yeah. So those are the two that I would use. But I'm interested in yours actually. Which two would you use, or which one? I'm making you pick your favorite child.
If I had to pick a game to make someone play for the first, see, the thing about it is, I like, there's a game that it's not even a tabletop RPG. It's a board game. It's called Arcadia Quest. And so I would pick Arcadia Quest for no other reason than you can. It's sort of like Dungeons and Dragons. It's a dungeon crawl board game, but you can like self-insert yourself into that into the game. Like you don't have to. You're not necessarily creating your own character, but you can make up an entire story about why your character is in this dungeon, and it's not complicated. Like literally, there's a story mode to the game, but like it's not. It's like. Actually, no, I'm lying to you. If I had to pick a game to get someone into, it'd be Root. It hasn't come out yet, but the answer is Root. It is a leader game. So Root the board game is I don't know. Do you know Root?
I've heard of it. I haven't actually played it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so Root is a bunch of forest creatures vying for power over a forest clearing. But there's a tabletop board game version of that game. Like there's a board game version, but there's a tabletop version of it. And the tabletop version of it hasn't come out yet, but I already love it. Like I already love it because it's literally everything I love about Root. It's cute, fuzzy animals vying for power over. Like there's a cat. There's like Marquise the cat. There's the Eerie something, which is a bunch of birds that are constantly cooing. Get it? Because they're birds. They're constantly cooing. There's some communism. Like they're socialist. They're actually socialist. Other small animals that are like chipmunks and gerbils and like other small fuzzy cute forest animals, but they're all socialists, and if you let them go for too long, they become overpowered and take over the forest. But if you squash them down, people get mad at you because like they're cute and fuzzy animals. Why are you being mean to them? And it's this constant cycle of you have to stop them because they're spreading communism. But if you don't stop
I have to play this game.
It's so good. It's so good. But they're making a tabletop RPG version of the board game. And I backed it on Kickstarter. It's coming. It's gonna be in my hands soon enough. But it's so good because like the characters are so. Oh, sorry. The character choices are just so good. The other game I would get people like. Actually, oh my god. I breathed horribly wrong just now. I got very excited and breathed too.
Right there.
And I got really excited and breathed wrong. Like, it's fun. It's Humblewood, which is technically a setting for D&D, but again, it's the same concept of cute fuzzy animals. I like games with cute fuzzy animals. Let's go with that. I like games where you're not playing people, you're playing cute fuzzy forest animals. It's
Oh,
a
there's another
weakness.
game which I would really like to play, which is I've got, but I haven't played yet, which is Golden Sky Stories, which is where you're playing as animals that can transform into humans. So it's a Japanese game.
Wait, I'm sorry. Animals that transform into people.
Yeah, it's like you can play as like a cat, or like a fox, or I think a raccoon dog, and
Oh
a
my
bunch of
God.
other animals. Like, yeah, again, pretty anime, but
I love it. No, I
it's
love it.
so cute.
Listen, cute fuzzy animals isn't my brand, but it should be. Like, I literally was working on a game called Panda Quest where everyone was a panda. Because pandas,
Yeah.
like, it was regular pandas, red pandas, trash pandas, small brown pandas. Wait.
Yeah, everything's just better with animals, right?
Everything is like, if I had to make a game besides Panda Quest, I'd make one with like Pugmire is great. I don't know if you know Pugmire. Pugmire is great.
Yeah.
Again, just put dogs in it. Like, can't go wrong. Okay, back on the topic of game design and not cute fuzzy animals. So let's see. I forgot how we got here. To be honest. How we got
I think you were asking what game would I use to introduce
Oh, right.
people.
What
Yeah.
game would you use to introduce someone else into? Let's see. What other questions do I have? You know what I should have done? I should have written down my questions beforehand, but that would have involved being prepared. And all I did to prepare for this was read the games that you sent me. If the audience has any questions, now would be the time to put them in chat, because I know I've been ignoring the audience this entire time. But they're people. There are a few people hanging out watching, I think. If they have any questions, now would be the time to put them in chat. If not, I'm gonna think about some other questions, and then if you have any commentary that you'd like to share, now would be the time. Because we are 40 minutes in, 42 minutes in, and I don't want to hold you up for too long. But let's see. Games you've made, games you liked. I mean, I feel like I should ask what your least favorite type of game is, but I also feel like that could be too telling.
Oh dear.
To be
Yeah,
fair,
I mean,
I don't have a least favorite type of game. I have yet to come across a game that I like. There are games that I don't enjoy playing, but it has nothing to do with the game. It has everything to do with the people.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say maybe is just in terms of accessibility, like really long games is something that nowadays I struggle with. I mean, I put up with it, as I said, for my first game, which is Dungeons and Dragons, but nowadays, like, I struggle to read anything that's really long, and especially if it's really dense
Yeah.
text.
I'll read the parts that I care about, and then I won't read the rest of it.
Yeah, I'll look through at the pretty pictures.
Yeah.
Other than that, games that have a lot of GM prep, like I said, GMing is something that I struggle with. It's something that I can enjoy at times, but it's not my favorite part of it, because I get quite anxious.
Yeah.
Um,
GMing, like, I used to GM for Pathfinder, and I love GMing, like I do, but it's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and it's very exhausting, and it's just like, and I'm done. And I
Yeah.
moved on to something else.
yeah.
But yeah, no, GMing isn't for everyone, but I also feel bad for anyone. Hold on a second. Why is my computer being like this? I also feel bad for anyone who gets stuck GMing all the time. Like, I guess one of the questions, actually another follow-up question to that, speaking about GMing, is for the games that you've made, obviously they have facilitators or people that are running the game. How would you suggest someone prep for running one of your games, since it doesn't require a lot of pickup? It doesn't require a lot of GM hand-holding in the back end.
Sure. So, I mean, it depends on the game, because some of my games do have a GM role, others don't.
Yeah.
For the ones that do, what I try to make it as simple as possible, and I try to make it so that you can improvise on the fly and it's relatively easy to do so. Um, I also, one thing that I like to include is GM prompts,
Mm-hmm.
which are just upfront prompts to generate a storyline. But also, as you go, how do you keep the story moving? And it might be something as simple as draw a tarot card and interpret what the meaning of that might be, or the image on it. Um, yeah, so try and make it so there is less GM prep. And also so that some of the responsibilities that you might traditionally see as a GM role are shared among the other players. So just figure out how the power is structured.
That's cool. Sorry, I muted myself to cough and then unmuted myself real fast. I'm trying to think, like, in the games that I've made, like, specifically actually no, in every game that I've made that's not a one-page game, I have a section that's like for the GM. These are all the things, like, I don't like GM prep, but I feel like all the games that I've made that are longer than one page require GM prep, which means I should probably like look into like maybe chilling on that, like maybe reimagining how much effort I think people need to put into playing these games before they actually get to play the game. If you didn't make tabletop RPGs, like if you did anything else in terms of game design, what would you want to do?
Well, other than creating my own games, the other thing that I do is illustrate others. So,
Okay.
And that's part of, because I'm still making D&D content, but
Okay.
A lot of the D&D stuff, or my contributions now, are illustrations for other people's work. So yeah, illustrations. I've also, I know you mentioned you'd made at least one visual novel, so I've made a couple as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, the problem with those is it takes a lot longer.
Yes, yes, it does. That is, I have two in progress games. The struggle is real. It's a real
struggle is real.
And it's not that I don't love doing it. It's just like it's so much work.
Yeah.
Like I just can't do
music and sound and all this, and art and all this other stuff that you can either ignore or skimp on for tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, like, and it's like, and like those definitely require patches because someone will find something and it'll be broken and you'll be like, crap, I thought I fixed that. Maybe that's just me. That might just be me.
I'm breaking my games all the time. How does coding even work?
I don't know. I'm just winging it. Like I'm just winging it. So technically speaking, behind the game, this entire thing is all kinds of games, not just tabletop RPGs. Right. So if you want to talk about your visual novels, now would be the time.
Sure. So there's two that I've made, Green Thread of Fate and Matilda. So in my usual style, one is a horror game, one is a very silly game. I always do this to myself. So
I mean,
yeah,
having a brain and sticking to it is always good.
Yeah. So Matilda is the horror game. So that one, that's actually free. So if anyone wants to pick it up and try it out, it's got content warnings all over it, but it's a pretty serious game. It's actually about domestic violence.
Oh, okay.
And it's also based around a traditional Australian song, which is Waltzing Matilda.
Okay.
That's been around, I think, about 100 and something years, so it's pretty old. It's better well known than our national anthem. I think it's the
normal
way we explain it. It's a bush ballad.
Wait, so, Bush the band?
Bush ballad.
Okay.
So that game, I won't talk about it too much because it does have some dark themes, but if anyone's interested in looking at that one, that's on my itch page. Green Thread of Fate is the other one, which is the really silly one, the really silly anime one, because I have a brand. So it's a reverse harem visual novel with no romance. pretty much the main character is aromantic. Everyone else is very, very queer. There's one other confirmed aromantic and asexual person. Everyone else introduces themselves by their pronouns. You can choose your own pronouns as well. Whether it's she, her, he, him, they, them. I think I have Z here and a couple of others, and you can enter your own as well, just like as a custom thing. So it has a whole heap of non-binary people. Pretty much set in another world where discrimination doesn't exist. So the protagonist has come from our world into this other world. And yeah, it's a pretty silly story, but it's also got some serious moments, and like, it's silly, but it's quite heartfelt. So yeah. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, so my next question was going to be, what did you make them in? On a technical skill level.
Sure. So they're both made in RenPy. Oh, RenPy.
RenPy. Yeah. It's RenPy because it's Python, so it's RenPy.
Yeah. I don't know. I found that out ages after I made my first visual novel. Which is, that's what the Pi stands for. Yeah, because I have a little bit of a coding background, but I only ever learned like C#. So the first issue I had with RenPy was I didn't realize that spaces were considered part of the coding.
Yes.
So I spent like a whole day trying to figure out why it wasn't working, and it was because I'd put a tab in.
the spaces matter.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, that frustration aside, RenPy is a fantastic piece of software. No. So easy to get started.
The two games the one game I have, Hurricane Like Me, I started in RenPy for a game jam 2 years ago. Still haven't finished it. I'm still working on it. It's fine. It's happening in the background. But the other game I started in Twine and tried to port it to Unity. It didn't work in Unity, so I said, fuck that shit. Let's get doing RenPy.
Yeah. No, because I've started making a game in Unity, which it's totally broken, so I have no idea when it'll be finished. But it just makes it seem like RenPy is so much easier because like the basics are already done for you, whereas in Unity you're pretty much starting from scratch.
Like one of my friends put it perfectly earlier today. You're building the universe to make a sandwich.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Like, I wanted a ham and cheese sandwich. I just wanted like a basic peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Nothing complicated. And you're asking me how to you're making me go like grind the flour to make the bread, and I'm like grind the nuts. Go away, Unity. I have no desire. Like, whatever desire I had to learn Unity quickly died. Very quickly and swiftly died. That's like, this is too complicated for what I'm doing. I just need
yeah, I mean, it's to give Unity some credit, it's a fantastic platform for like complicated games, but not for visual novels.
Not just for visual novels. If you're trying to do something simple, like literally 2 things on the screen with text, like, even if it's a platformer, like even if it's like a basic, like you don't need, like you can do it in Pi games. Why? Like, I don't need all this heavy lifting and all this muscle in the background. Like, I knew someone who was making a visual novel in Unreal, and I was just thinking, why? He's like, oh, well, I was free and I know it. And I'm just like, I don't understand the words that you just said. I don't care that it's free. I don't understand. Why are you doing, like, you're like, again, building the universe to make a sandwich. And I can't help. I don't want to help you with that. But, so like me, you make visual novels and tabletop RPGs. Yay!
Hey.
Do you see yourself making any other visual novels in the future, or are you basically just making tabletop RPGs from here on out?
I mean, I wouldn't say never. I think right this second I'm mostly focusing on tabletop games, but yeah, I mean, I liked making visual novels. The only issue is they take so long, but yeah, I mean, I've been playing a bunch. I love trashy dating games. So yeah,
I love needlessly complicated stat building games. Like, I don't know. I was playing a couple weeks ago this game called Long Live the Queen, where it's literally just a stat raising game. Like, you're just trying to get good enough so you don't die at the end. And when I tell you die at the end, there's like so many different ways that you can die. And I'm just like, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Why am I dead? For the Queen, not For the Queen. Long Live the Queen is a great game. It's just real hard. It's just real hard, and I played for like 6 hours, like in one sitting. Cause like I'm gonna beat this simulation. I'm gonna do it right. Speaking of visual novels and tabletop RPGs, because this is a thing that I think about. And this is a 2-part question or a 3-part question. Question 1: what tabletop RPG do you think would make a good visual, like story-wise, would make a good visual novel? That you've made.
That I've made. Well, that's easier then. So I'll actually say Cage of Sand, because to a certain extent it's already inspired by some visual novels. So there's a series, When They Cry, well, it's really 2 series, I think, Higurashi no Nakukoroni and Umineko no Nakukoroni. So games where you are stuck in a time loop with a lot of people dying. So it's pretty much the plot of the game that I made. So it already is a visual novel. So one that I didn't steal from visual novels, I probably have one. Pride and Princess would be interesting, because that's, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much already is a visual novel. It's a trashy tabletop role-playing game. Like,
the world needs more of those.
So
the world needs more of those. Can't have too many trashy romance games or trashy dating games.
Yeah, look, I love trash. I know it's not good, but
no, I'm a panda. I'm a trash panda. I'm a proud and happy trash panda. One person's trash is my treasure, and I will defend my treasure furiously because it is amazing. I am deep in certain trash. Like there's certain people who have trash cans, and they put this stuff out there, and I just live there. I live there. I'm deep in that metaphor. Like, I'm real deep in that. I am truly a trash panda. It's fine. Okay, so my next question, which is the 2-part question, is what is tabletop RPG making taught you for visual novels and vice versa?
Sorry, can you repeat that one?
Like, what is tabletop RPGs, like making tabletop RPGs taught you that you use in visual novel making, and what is visual novel making taught you that you use in tabletop RPGs?
Sure.
Like skill and story wise.
Yeah, I mean they're quite different mediums. I think what tabletop RPGs has taught me is just how much fun you can have with just chaos. So yeah, just like, because even whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or whether it's Honey Heist, like when you roll a bad result, like you're rolling a natural one, or you bear out or criminal out in Honey Heist, like just the fun of those failures, which I think, because visual novels are generally relatively structured, so just giving it an option to do completely the wrong thing, because I will inevitably pick that option if I'm playing a visual novel. So that's I guess that half the question. What can I take from visual novels into tabletop role playing is my enjoyment of trash.
That's fair. That is a fair. That is legit. Like I like to think I'm a connoisseur of trash. Like I know good trash from like other trash. Like there's like, cause like there are levels of trash.
There are caviar.
Like there are levels of like I can't think of anything that's bad trash right now. But like I've been some places on the internet, and I'm just like, no, I'm gonna go now. And like there are other times it's like, no, I'm never leaving this place again. I live here now. You're never gonna get like I'm just gonna I'm just gonna crawl into this space that you've made for me, and I'm just gonna curl up there and never leave. It's great. It's great. But okay. Unless there are questions from the viewers, unless you have commentary, or any comments that you want to share, I think this has been a blast. I greatly appreciate you coming and stopping by and hanging out with me for the last hour and chatting about games. But I don't think I have any other questions.
No, it's been fantastic chatting with you, and yeah.
I'm gonna put your itch link in the chat for anyone who I know how to use letters. I forgot how to. I should have set that up for a shout out, but it's fine. H.io. I know how to use the computer. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Technology's hard.
Technology is hard. Technology is hard. Also, like things don't work the way they're supposed to work, especially because this, to be fair, this went really well for the first episode, and I'm glad that you were here with me for this. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your desire to hang out with me while we talk about games.
Yeah, no, I've had a great time, so thanks for having me.
But yeah, I'm gonna call it not a night because it's morning for you. I'm gonna call it an episode. I'm gonna download this from Twitch.com because I didn't set my thing to record because I'm a dumbass, and upload it to YouTube so anyone who missed it can watch the whole thing. Hopefully there aren't any muted parts of it. If there are, we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But yeah, there'll be a save. There'll be the video on demand of this saved for people to watch at a later date should they desire to do so. But yeah, thanks for hanging out.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And then we're gonna click that button. And then you're now muted, but you're still here for me. Actually. Yeah, no, okay, I can still see you, and you're still here for me, and I can still hear you, and you can still hear me. How do I turn this on? There we go. Okay, we're back with my weird side camera. Oh yeah, no. So the way my OBS works is when I change do you